Determine the limit as x approaches positive infinity as x approaches negative infinity of 2x plus the square root of 4x squared plus 10x. Starting with the limit as x approaches positive infinity of 2x plus the square root of 4x squared plus 10x. The first thing to do is to try plugging a positive infinity in for each of the x's. Only the highest power terms matter here. There is a 2x as well as a square root of 4x squared, which is also a 2x. Plugging in positive infinity, 2 times positive infinity is positive infinity plus positive infinity squared is positive infinity times 4 is a positive infinity, and the square root of positive infinity is positive infinity. The result is a positive infinity plus a positive infinity. Infinity plus infinity is positive infinity, and there's the result of that limit. Now to work out the limit as x approaches negative infinity of 2x plus the square root of 4x squared plus 10x. First thing to do is try plugging a negative infinity in for each of the x's. Only the highest power terms will matter here. We have a 2x as well as the square root of 4x squared. Plugging in negative infinity, 2 times negative infinity will be negative infinity. Plus, negative infinity squared is positive infinity, times 4 is positive infinity, and the square root of positive infinity is positive infinity. The result is negative infinity plus a positive infinity, or reversing the order, infinity minus infinity. We have the infinity minus infinity indeterminate form here. We will have to rework this. Since it's resulting from a root combination, a root involving the variable x in some way, added or subtracted together with at least one other term, we can make use of the root conjugate. So writing the original limit, we can formulate the root conjugate by having the same two terms in the root combination but opposite sign between them, so it will be a minus. And we're going to put it over itself, a form of 1, since we're about to multiply. And by having a form of 1, we will not change the value just to look after we multiply. The original term we can put over a 1 so that we can multiply the denominators as well as the numerators. Now we will multiply these together. In the numerator we have a root conjugate pair, so we will FOIL that out. First, 2x times 2x will be 4x squared. Outside 2x times a negative square root, and inside positive square root times 2x, they will cancel each other out. And then last, positive square root times negative square root will give a negative, and square root times square root is square root squared. They cancel each other out, leaving just the 4x squared plus 10x, but it will be subtracting all of it. So we will want to put this inside parentheses with the minus out in front of it. Divided by, in the denominator, 1 times the conjugate will just be the conjugate. In the numerator, we have a 4x squared, and we can distribute the minus into here, which will give a negative 4x squared, and then a negative 10x. I'm going to leave the denominator alone. can now combine together like terms in the numerator. The 4x squared and the negative 4x squared will cancel each other out, leaving behind a negative 10x divided by, and leaving the denominator alone, 2x minus the square root of 4x squared plus 10x. Now that it's simplified, let's try plugging in negative infinity in for each of the x's. Only the highest power terms in the numerator and denominator will matter here. In the numerator, negative 10x, in the denominator, 2x and the square root of 4x squared. In the numerator, negative 10 times a negative infinity will be a positive infinity, divided by 2 times negative infinity is negative infinity, minus negative infinity squared is positive infinity, times 4 is positive infinity, the square root of positive infinity is positive infinity, so it'll be negative infinity minus a positive infinity. Negative infinity minus infinity is negative infinity. The result is positive infinity over negative infinity. We have the infinity over infinity indeterminate form here. We will need to rework this, and it will be reworked by dividing both the numerator and denominator by the highest power of x in the denominator. In the denominator, there is an x to the first power and an x squared under a square root, which will also be x to the first power. Therefore, we'll divide by x to the first power. However, since x is approaching negative infinity, and at least one of the highest power terms is under a root, it's happening in the denominator here, instead of dividing by x to the first power, we'll divide by negative x to the first power. Therefore, we're going to divide the numerator and denominator by negative x. This will give a numerator of negative 10x divided by negative x, and the denominator of 2x divided by negative x minus the entire square root, 4x squared plus 10x divided by negative x. In the numerator, the negatives can cancel to become a positive, the x's can cancel, and it will become a positive 10. In the denominator, the first term, positive over negative is negative, the x's can cancel, it will leave a negative 2, and then minus, and then the square root can extend over the negative x, by rewriting it as negative x squared, because the square root of negative x squared will be negative x. Leaving the numerator alone, leaving the first term in the denominator alone, we can now put each term under the root over a negative x quantity squared. Well, negative squared is positive, and then x squared, so each term can be put over a positive x squared. Now into the root, the first term The x squareds will cancel to leave a 4. In the second term, one of the x's in the denominator can cancel with the x in the numerator, leaving a positive 10 over x. Each term that is a constant divided by x to a positive power will go to 0 as x approaches negative infinity. The result is 10 divided by a negative 2 minus the square root of 4 plus 0, which is 10 divided by negative 2 minus the square root of 4 plus 0 is 4. And the square root of 4 is a 2. Minus 2 minus 2 is a negative 4. A positive over a negative is negative, and the 10 and the 4 can be reduced by a 2 to become 5 over 2. So it results in a negative 5 over 2. And there's the results of the two different limits.